All right, so welcome to you guys at home, and thank you for joining this special Meet the Miniaturist today. Before I bring on my very special guest, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. If you weren't able to join my most recent free webinar, which I did last weekend on how to build an awesome miniatures collection, don't worry, I will be repeating that in the next couple of weeks. So definitely sign up on my website for updates so that you're on my email list so you can get activated and join us for the next time I hold that webinar. You're also going to want to check out my latest Meet the Miniaturists, which have been posted on my YouTube page and my YouTube channel. And of course, if you like what you see, smash that like button and definitely subscribe. And if you really like what you see and you want to encourage more effort on my part to provide miniature content, you can join my Patrons Club, which is also in the links in below. I'll put those for you. But with that, I would like to bring on my very special guest, Jen O'Connell, from the popular known as myself Instagram account. How are you, Jen? Good to see you today. Thank you for joining.
Hello.
Just before we begin, I want to totally dive into, you and your art and all that, but I do want to say what drew me in so powerfully when I saw your work. It's just such a great mix of miniatures and miniatures put on display like we haven't really seen before. And it's kind of really a fresh approach. And then, of course, we spoke a little bit before we got here, and I just learned more about your story, and it made me even want to tell it even more. So thank you for joining. I'm so glad you're here. Why don't we start a little bit with your background and tell us a little bit more about yourself, and maybe a little bit about your art background.
Sure. I'm a native New Yorker, born and raised. I went to school at SUNY Purchase, and my major was printmaking and drawing. After school, I was an artist assistant. I worked for Kathy Caraccio in her printmaking studio in New York City. And I got to work with Emma Amos, whose work is now up at the Met. That was really exciting. And let's see, as an artist, after that, I became a teacher. And that schedule really allowed me to become, I guess I would say, like a personal artist. I wasn't making work for show. I wasn't making work for sale. And quite honestly, I never wanted to. And so that really would be the start of my journey as the artist that perhaps I am today.
Yeah.
Because that schedule gave me summers off, and I was home at a reasonable hour, and gave me just time to really think about what I wanted to make without any kind of expectations or judgments. And that's kind of the beginning of, what I would say is known as myself, that body of work. And that started around the time that I was 25. This the exploration of myself through my art has been going on almost exclusively, of myself or my family since that age. I was 25 years old.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about the evolution of your art, because I think you mentioned you studied printmaking, and then it evolved into illustration, and then what it is today. Talk a little bit about that journey and a little bit about how you ended up doing the type of art you're doing today, because I think that's really a big part of this whole story.
Sure. After going to school for printmaking and drawing, you need a print studio, and you need etching supplies and acid and, copper and all of these things. And the shop that I was an assistant in was a green shop. We didn't have an acid bath or anything like that. And so I was really just kind of like I helped out with the printing. I did a lot of the documentation of the collection, which taught me a lot. But, excuse me, coffee.
Yes.
But at that point, printmaking was not really that much of an option. I didn't have the time, the space, or the money after school to invest in that on my own. And so I began making books, and I did a lot of mixed media collage drawings and paintings. And that was interesting. It was quite a time in my life. I must say I was a wild child. And right? The work from that time period reflects that part of my life. It looks like that. It's work in books, work on pieces of wood, all self-portraits. Actually, let me just angle my phone up a little bit. If you see
Okay.
that painting up there,
Yes.
that is from around that time period. But then, as I began work as a teacher, I had access to supplies in the classroom. And so I continued to do my collages and my paintings, but it was around that time that I started focusing on ballpoint pen and watercolor. I
Right.
just wanted to get good at it. And so I continued practicing that every day, mostly in sketchbooks. And then around 2011, we're talking like maybe 10 years there past, where I was a teacher, I was drawing, I was painting, I was working in acrylics. I was doing a bit of collage in there. Then, my ex-husband left us and I wound up getting divorced. I became in about the space of a year and a half. My grandmother died. My ex-husband left us. I had a baby. He was 4 years old. I was going to school for my master's because I had switched careers to become a teacher. And then my mother passed away, and all of these things happened at the same, like pretty much the same time. And so my artwork, thank goodness I had gotten used to focusing on my own life through my work, because I really turned to it. I kept going to school. I put myself through school. My former students, who were now in high school, became my babysitters.
Yeah.
My professors, everybody was like, really supportive. I would bring my child with me to
Yeah.
school. If I couldn't find childcare, I brought him with me to work. I'd become a teacher in a public school by then.
Yeah.
And I wound up making my artwork. One of the coolest things that my professor, Marit Dewhurst from City College, which is where I wound up getting my master's. I had to go back to school to study teaching because I went to school for art.
Right.
And in a public school, you need to be certified, to become a teacher. So I went back for my master's for art education. And it took me like 7 years, to get that done. By the time my ex-husband left, I was on my last year or two of my master's. And I just was like, I got to do this.
Yeah. Yeah.
So
I was going to say, but a lot of your work is autobiographical in nature. Is that right?
it's autobiographical. So all the work from that, it's all about that.
Yeah.
And I think it continued to be about that. I got my master's. I wound up getting tenure at work, and being a teacher allowed me to make my work in the classroom and use it as a tool. And that is something I value so deeply. Like the inspiration that I get from my students, it's a cyclical thing. Like they can be learning from me, I could be learning from them. I could be showing them something that they would never have the opportunity to see otherwise. Not to pat myself on the back or anything, but I'm pretty skillful at drawing,
You are.
and watercolor. And I don't remember ever seeing anyone in person do stuff like that. So I think the experience of sharing my work with my students, I see what I'm doing reflected back at me and what they're doing. And it's really quite lovely.
Yeah. Yeah. So, but there came a time though that you had this sort of paradigm shift in terms of
I think the world's had a paradigm shift, and so did I.
Yeah.
Mine was compounded though. I had experienced right before COVID in 2019, I had experienced a trauma, and I really turned my world upside down. And I had already been sharing my work online through social media just to document my artwork and the progress of it. At that time, I think I was still known as myself, but it was like known as myself 78 or some other form of known as myself.
Right.
And I didn't have a large audience. And in fact, this large audience is pretty new. It's only since November. And so I had been making my work under the, kind of like the belief that I was invisible. And that my work, I really was operating thinking like, my work would never be seen in my lifetime. So I just went for it as though I would, like when they say dance like you think no one's watching. I was doing my work like nobody was watching. And but then this trauma occurred.
Oh yeah, go ahead. Sorry. Yeah.
And I made my work about that. And I used social media to document the work and my experience. And then I went offline because doing that publicly was almost as traumatizing as what happened to me, but
Where
I
are
felt
you
it was
working in Miniature
necessary.
at this point and doing your animation work, or not yet?
That's when I started the animation. So the turning point for me was that trauma, because my drawings and paintings, they look like me. And
Yeah,
they're very spiritual in my experience. You know, like when I make them, I'm in another dimension,
right.
and I'm tapping into some other, some other energy. Some might call it God, I call
And
it
very personal, I would imagine. So
very.
to share it on social media, it completely bursts that whole that feeling, I would
It
imagine.
did and it didn't. I still believed that I was invisible, but what I was reacting to was the nature of what I began to share and how that started to manifest in my personal life. Like
Yeah.
whatever, if I knew now what I knew then, I don't know that I would have done anything differently. But to be quite honest, like that going public about such a trauma added to the trauma. But in hindsight or in retrospect, I do not regret it, because I faced the moment.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I was honest,
Yeah.
and I used my artwork for what it was I used it to transcend.
Yeah.
But that's when I started the miniatures, because I made a body of work that I call like the Live Through This series.
Uh-huh.
And it was then COVID happened, like within that year, 2019 to 2020. It was January of 2019 when that happened to me. And then when did COVID happen? March of 2020.
Right. It hit.
So over that year, I had made a body of work about my experience and trying to recover from it. But I found that looking at myself in these portraits was just so painful.
Right.
And that was a devastating thing for me, because in these ballpoint pen drawings and watercolors, I found ultimate freedom and confidence. And so to have that taken away after having worked a lifetime, to be able to make it like that was kind of unacceptable, So that's when I was like, I got to do something else. And I started researching how to make a ball jointed doll.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe now is a good time for me to go walk to my collection, because
definitely.
I can show, sorry.
The paradigm shift moved from illustration to art doll, essentially.
Well, I didn't really want to make an art doll. What I wanted to do was animate.
Uh-huh.
Okay, I'm gonna flip my camera around now so that you can see some of my miniatures here. But I taught myself how to make a ball jointed doll. And this was what I made.
Right.
I made it out of homemade clay and some beads, and she came out pretty good. Yeah. And I had started making all of these little things too. These are pretty, more recent than my beginning stuff. My beginning stuff, I don't even know where it is anymore. It's like probably in the garbage. But, something that what I was doing was I was creating my life in miniature. You could see like the beanbag chairs and the couch. It's kind of what it looks like here. The beanbag, there's that green table, which is this green table, it was like creating my mini world for myself. And so I started teaching myself these things.
Did you grow up with dolls and miniatures? Like, where was the early inspiration to move to doll as your medium and animation? We're going to get to, because that really brings to life your work. Is the animation brings it to life?
Yes, the animation brings it to life. Like, when I was a little kid, my mom collected dolls. Mm-hmm. I really didn't think about this until I started, making my own doll worlds, basically. Yeah. But she collected porcelain dolls. And after school, sometimes she would take me to this lady's house who made bears, but in these like adorable, beautiful dresses and shoes, and they had hair and eyelashes. And as a kid, I just thought it was fascinating. Her whole apartment was filled with these bears that she had made. Right. My mom would buy them, and I wasn't allowed to touch them. And when my mom passed away, I don't even know what my brothers and sisters did with my mom's doll collection. But if I had known now what I knew then, I would have been like, oh my God, give them to me. Yeah. Imagine. But that was the early inspiration.
Yeah. Can you talk a little bit about the different types of materials you use? It looks like it's pretty broad.
Yeah, I was experimenting because, to be honest, I never sculpted before.
Hmm.
I never sculpted anything.
Hmm.
So I started with the dolls. I started using air dry clay. This is polymer clay,
Mhm.
which is my preferred clay to use to make the heads,
Wow.
that I make.
Yeah.
And then the air dry clay didn't really last very long. Like, this is made out of air dry clay. That was one of my first experiments, this one here. But
Yeah.
they crack. It cracks under pressure and movement.
Oh,
So
wow.
then I just, I started buying the dolls because it would take me too long to really learn how to make one as functional as these beautiful ball jointed dolls by artists
Right.
who specialize in this kind of thing. So I started collecting the dolls and then putting my own handmade heads on them. This is a little Frida doll that I made.
Right. Yeah,
And
great.
my student sewed this dress.
Oh, okay.
But I used air dry clay, polymer clay,
Hmm.
um, my own clothes and things like that to make the sheets and what else? Cardboard. Oh my God, so much cardboard.
Yeah.
So for these kinds of sets, like these are just boxes that
Right.
I've then cut apart,
Yeah.
put back together. Let
Yeah.
me see if I can get the lighting a little bit better in this
Yeah.
set.
And these are actually pieces that are going to go into a show that you're doing. Isn't that right? Do you want to talk a little bit about this gallery show that you have been invited to present in?
Yeah, sure. So, all of a sudden I got this ginormous following on Instagram. And then from there, I got to tell you, I felt like a rock star. I was like, oh my God. From there, people started reaching out to me. And Terry Goldberg Gallery in New York
Mm.
came to my apartment, looked at all this stuff. They
Oh,
were they were like, wow, this is so cool.
yeah.
Would you like to have a show? And I was like, yeah. I've
Yeah.
never really tried anything like that before, like a gallery exhibition or selling my work. But I mean, here's the opportunity presented to me.
Yeah.
So sure, I'm going to try it.
Yeah.
So they asked for 3 sets and
Mm.
animations, and they're also going to include, some of my ballpoint pen drawings and watercolors. So
So
that's
will
going to be
each
on March 31st at Terry Goldberg Gallery from 6 to 8. It's a Friday. Oh my gosh, if people would go, I mean, it's going to be like a psychic tidal wave, I feel like.
Yeah. So do each one of these diorama sets, if that's what you be calling
I
them,
call them sets. Yeah.
because ultimately they become animated. So I have 2
Yeah.
questions. So is there a story behind each of these, and is there an animated
Yes.
component to the exhibition?
Yes.
Yes. Okay.
This is my Airbnb kitchen
Oh.
because I love to travel. And it's
Oh.
kind of like a mix of a couple of different kitchens that I've been in. This one's mostly based on the last Airbnb kitchen I was in, which was in Florence. You could see
Oh,
El
wow.
Duomo
Oh,
out
yeah.
the window there.
Wow.
But just kind of like, it's mostly based on imagination. But
Yeah.
um, this is my Airbnb kitchen, with all the fixings, all the things,
Yeah.
as well as some dentures,
I love it.
some dentures. And then, so these things are so cool. I don't know if I glued this down or not. I hope I did. But I made a compass so that I could turn it. I love making things that move for my
Yeah.
animations.
Right.
So these
That's
are her True Vision goggles. I made another version of those for the living room set, so that when she goes outside to see things, she could see behind, the
Yeah.
reality into
Wow.
the history or maybe even the future or the spirituality of it. This is Travel Jen, I call her.
Uh-huh.
Travel Jen is dressed for the churches because you have to cover your shoulders
Of course.
or they won't let you in.
Yeah.
The
So do you
eyes,
think
which you
this, you talk about how this your art has helped you move past like previous trauma.
yes.
Do you feel like this exhibition is just another level of that? I mean, because you're really coming out full on now with the show. Because
Yeah. I mean, part of me always envisioned this moment. I would be lying if I said that I didn't believe in my work because it's the one thing in my life that I've truly believed in since the beginning.
Yeah.
So I expected my work to be seen, just not during my lifetime.
Oh, wow. Interesting. Very interesting.
And
Yeah.
after this trauma, I really threw myself into bringing these ideas to life, these animations to life. It's all symbolic. That
Uh-huh.
the little animals are like my resurrected pets from my childhood.
Right.
And they're weighing what they know right now. See, they're reading and weighing what they know. And these are my mystical wise women, my Matryoshka doll, which was a gift from my friend. She's over there. Can you see her?
Uh-huh.
There she
Definitely.
is.
Oh, yeah. And I
So,
love the little magic 8 ball. That's probably my favorite piece.
oh yeah, the magic 8 ball. So Grim, my skeleton here,
Yeah.
Grim delivers the magic 8 ball to this is like bathroom Jen. I don't know what else to call her.
Yeah.
This is bathroom Jen. She has like a C-section scar and
Wow.
her little tattoo reel
Yeah.
and her face and everything. She's so beautiful, isn't she?
Really?
But yeah, the bathroom, this is actually a good one because I was working on this set right when that following happens. And I don't know if you could see
really?
help written on the mirror.
Yeah. No, we can see it.
Help.
Oh, wow.
And then the note that says, I love you.
Yeah.
That's me talking to myself.
Wow. Yeah.
About looking in the mirror, helping yourself, and then telling yourself, I love you. It's going to be okay.
Yeah.
And these are all the fixings. Like, you don't know what's going to happen, but the magic 8 ball, maybe.
Yeah.
It is decidedly so.
Can you talk a
The
little bit
answer
about your
is
process,
yes.
about your process for creating your animation? What's your thinking about before you go into animate? Do you map it out fully or do you...
No. So, I did for a minute there because I'm going to walk back to the living room set in just a moment. But before I do, and I'm going to answer that question, I have to show you something. I don't know if it's inappropriate for your show, but this is vagina plant.
Oh, I love her. Everyone needs a vagina plant in their bathroom.
Vagina plants. It's so funny. And eyeball plants.
What eyeball plant? And I was going to say there is such a playful way about your miniatures,
and Ducky is saving the heart from drowning.
So unique and so lovely. And it's
yes.
It's sad that there's a traumatic story that's coming around in it, but they're still very delightful.
Well, it's beyond trauma, like this is a way, it's almost like celebrating the recovery. Like, okay, so this happened to me, but look, when I look back at all of this, at these animations and these sets, and I think to myself, so you went through this trauma and what did you do, Jen?
Yeah.
I did this. This is what I did.
Right.
And I can look back at that and I'm never going to regret having spent my time doing this. This is my recovery. And so to answer your question, do I map it out? No. At first I was working intuitively. So this is living room Jen. I did not make her head. This is a doll by Elizabeta Fastavets.
Okay.
Is Holly A. Nora Dolls on Instagram. I just colored her and made her clothes and gave her some, tattoos and things like that. But this set is the living room set. And I work intuitively, like I make things, I do sketch out like how to make the things.
Right.
But in terms of how the little stories of the animations go, no, I just start playing with the things that I've made.
Yeah. And then ultimately, do you want the movement to have a message? What's your
Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Talk a little bit about that process, of the movement to get to the message, because if you're not mapping it out, it's very just intuitive, huh?
Yeah, it's stream of consciousness.
Wow.
However, all of the material has already been there. These are my miniature drawings, which are on the walls. And so the material
has of your work, or
they're just photocopies that I shrunk down and made little frames for. And I don't know, would it have? I'm not super prepared to show you. Like, these are in my flat files and in my books, which I didn't pull out.
Yeah, no, we can probably see them. We can see them.
But these are, little photocopies of my work. These are my parents. Look, this drawing right there is right here on the wall behind me.
Right. That does looks familiar for sure.
Right. So, and these, I think what I'm doing when I play with all of these objects, there is a message, and it's a message to myself. And so, I'm getting better at animating in motion, but I don't use a rig or anything to hold my figures in place. And so there's a lot of shaking and things like that, but it's okay, because really the point of the whole thing is to pass the time, to reflect, to make, to bring some kind of beauty into the world. And to kind of just put my soul into it. To leave a story behind in the abstract, because I don't really think you need to define every little thing. The abstract is good enough if it captures the emotion, if it captures the experience in a way that every time I look at it, I can feel like I did something useful with that moment. I put my skills to work. I tested my creativity. I'm exploring all of the different ways that I can tell a story, my drawings, my watercolors. Now I can do this, and there are little messages in there, like, banned books, Fahrenheit 451, Animal Farm, Gently Please. Everything I make has some sort, that says banned books, has some sort of message to it. Right now, the pen is being weighed with a lock and key. Like the weight of the art, basically. What is it considering? And then tucked into the chair is a little bottle of sour morals.
Oh, hi. I love it.
Another pair of True Vision goggles.
So is everything glued down before you animate, or?
No, I used this stuff. Hold on. I used this. It's poster putty.
Oh, yeah. Blue.
So I can, because, up until the show, I reused everything. These sets are now just going to be like, a one-stop thing. So here's like the poster putty. Can you see that?
Yeah.
It's very small.
Yeah.
I use poster putty to hold things down, but until I'm done with an animation, like, I never glued anything down, because I move things around and reuse them to tell the stories in the animations.
Right.
Because of this show, I have been experimenting with gluing things down, and I've glued things to the walls, and I tried gluing some of the tables down, and it does help for the animation. But now I have to figure out how to pack it all.
But that's another thing. So we're getting a very rare glimpse of, artists' work in progress, because these are not complete, right? Because you still have a little more time before the exhibition starts.
I do have a little bit of time before the exhibition starts. As far as the artwork goes, it's complete. The only thing that's not complete, I still have more I'm going to animate up until there's no more time to animate.
Oh.
Like, I'm going to continue. I'll spend, the animations take me anywhere from 6 to 8 hours. And
6 to 8 hours gives you how long of a finished piece?
Oh my God, 30 seconds, a minute.
Wow.
And that's actually good, that's pretty good, because it's a one-shot deal. Like, I'm not redoing anything, or I'm still using this as a cathartic, therapeutic activity.
Right.
I may be having this exhibition, and, this work may be for sale. This would be like the first time I've ever sold my work. But quite honestly, beyond the show, there's still just me and my work.
Right.
And it still serves its original purpose, which is to give me a place to express myself, to put it all. It holds the space for me so that I don't have to dwell on anything. And it transforms those pains and those traumas into something beautiful, and something that I can look on and say, like, well, there's a lesson in everything. And to be quite honest, what happened to me, I'm nothing special. What happened to me happens to so many people,
right.
And to dwell on any of these pains or anything like that is kind of a waste of my time. Instead, it'll all just go into this, and I can make art in it, and that's eternal.
Yeah. So the following really started when you started to share the animation, right?
I had been sharing them. You know what I think happened? I think Jerry Saltz
Oh, is that right?
saw my work, shared it on his page, and then Beautiful Bizarre Magazine did, and Wow Wow Magazine. And between them all, you know, they have like millions of followers.
Right.
And so because those, and not only them, but like a bunch of people that follow them who have big followings began to just like blast my work on social media. And some of those earlier animations from that time around November, like one of them got 1.9 million views.
Right.
Hundreds of thousands of views. And so I went from like having maybe 900 followers to within the span of a month having almost 75,000 followers.
Wow.
You know, so these are all, most of these people are new followers who are just learning about my work and may not even know about why I started making animation, or that I've only been doing this for a couple of years, you know, and some opportunities have come out.
But it is the animation though that is.
Yeah, it's the animation that got the attention.
That's nice.
Yeah.
And what's been the most of sort of not the comments that come through, but what is the reaction? What are these followers?
Wow. So talk about psychic tidal waves. I have cried so much in these last couple of months, you know, because you're talking about someone who is living in a bubble. I'm living in a bubble. You know, I'm creating this solely for myself, with no real destination, no real goal other than to just make it. And then all of a sudden, all these people come out there, and, you know, it's kind of like everything that people had to say, they could express better in words than I could what my work was about, and just the understanding and the generosity of praise, and all of the artists who give me feedback and encouragement. I mean, my heart was just overflowing, you know, just swollen with the emotions.
I would imagine people connect with it in different ways. And
A lot of people say they see themselves in it. A lot of people say, you know, that it's so creative and fun, and at the same time dark, disturbing, terrifying, frightening. A lot of people see sadness.
You called it magic. I asked you when we spoke earlier about the aesthetic, and I think you said it was magical realism. Is that right?
Yes, I call it magical realism.
Realism. Interesting. Awesome. So Jen, can you bring us back to you so we can finish up with your face?
Certainly. Give me just a second here to readjust my phone stand.
Awesome.
Okay, and I gotta turn my video around. There we go.
This has been such a wonderful treat to see your work and hear from you directly your perspective on it. This is just fascinating. I can't wait to showcase your work and for others to see it and to see more of it. So what is next for you? I mean, you have the show, really. I can't ask that question. You have to get through the show.
Yeah, I got to get through the show, but I'm, you know, now that I've completed all the sets and I'm just animating, I'm already thinking about what's next.
Well, so what are you thinking?
Well, so there's this guy named James Cleary. Please forgive me if I said his last name wrong. He is the maker or owner of Dragon Frame software, which is the industry standard for stop motion. And Pinocchio just won an Oscar using that software. And if you go to the Museum of Modern Art with the Pinocchio exhibition, they actually have computers up with the Dragon Frame software there so you could see it. Anyway, I was chatting on my DMs one day with somebody who's very knowledgeable about stop motion, and it just turned out to be the owner of Dragon Frame. So they gifted me the software. They sent me a keypad, and I got myself a laptop and a camera. So I'm thinking next I'm gonna learn how to use that software.
That's
maybe
incredible.
I want to make a movie.
Yeah.
You know?
Wow.
So I don't know how long that's going to take, or how that will play out, or how much work that will take, but that's in the back of my head, you know? And I I have scenes from my childhood, my mother's backyard, like, you know,
Yeah.
those folding sun chairs from the 80s with like the plastic across them, those long,
Yes.
that with like my headphones and like suntan oil and just like my mom's backyard. All
Yeah.
of those things that I remember, her hanging the clothes on that spinning clothes hanger. Like I want to make that. And I want to get outside. I want my dolls to get outside. And
Wow.
I'm thinking, of all the times I've spent camping, or I want to make a campsite. And I think of like, you know, witches and covens and things like that in the woods. And I don't know, I'm thinking that stuff.
I hear your mind working, and it's awesome. And I can't wait to see what else you have in store. And we're all going to be looking for your exhibition coming up in New York. How awesome. We're going to put
Yay.
all of your Instagram links still down below so people can find you and follow you. And thank you so much for being here today. This has been
Yay,
such
my
a treat.
pleasure. I was so excited when you reached out. I love your show.
Thank you. Thank you. I can't wait to share this. So thank you again. And thank you guys at home for watching. Appreciate it. Have a great rest of your day, everybody. All right. Bye.
Yay, thank you so much.